What if I told you that every religious book, every guru, every spiritual teacher has been hiding something from you? Something so obvious yet so revolutionary that once you see it, you'll never look at spirituality the same way again. Your soul is like your fingerprints. Just like no two people have the same DNA, no two souls walk the same spiritual path. And right now, as you're listening to this, you're about to discover why you are not meant to fit into anyone else's spiritual box. Think about it. Have you ever felt like a fraud sitting in that meditation class, like everyone else gets it, while you're just pretending? Here's why. You've been trying to wear someone else's spiritual clothes, and they don't fit. Every mystic throughout history, from Rumi to Buddha to modern-day awakened beings, discovered the same shocking truth. The path to the divine is as unique as your thumbprint. The Sufi poets called it the beloved secret whisper meant only for you. Hindu sages spoke of svadharma, your soul's unique duty that no one else can fulfill. But here's where it gets interesting. The spiritual industry wants you to believe there's a one-size-fits-all formula. Buy this course, chant these words, follow these steps. Why? Because unique paths can't be packaged and sold. Your soul is calling you towards something that has never existed before in human history. Your combination of wounds, gifts, experiences, and dreams creates a spiritual signature that the universe has been waiting for. So here's my question for you. What if the reason nothing has worked for you yet is because you're finally ready for your path? Drop a comment and tell me. What's the one spiritual practice everyone swears by that just doesn't click for you? Your answer might be the key to your unique awakening. Remember, you're not broken, you're rare, and rare souls need rare paths. The universal human longing. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel that pull in your chest, that nameless hunger that no amount of success, love, or achievement can fully satisfy. That's not emptiness. That's your soul remembering where it came from. Every human who has ever lived has felt this exact same pull. The billionaire feels it in his penthouse. The monk feels it in his cave. Your neighbor feels it while scrolling through social media at 2 a.m. But here's what will blow your mind. This universal ache is actually proof that you're wired for something extraordinary. Imagine if I could show you a secret map that every culture on Earth has been drawing for thousands of years, but each one only had a piece of it. The ancient Greeks carved "Know Thyself" into their most sacred temple, not as philosophy, but as a survival instruction. The Sufis whispered, "Within you is the light of 1,000 suns," because they discovered that the divine isn't somewhere out there, it's been hiding inside you this whole time. Buddha's final words weren't about following him. They were radical. Be a lamp unto yourself. He was literally telling people to stop looking for external saviors and become their own source of light. But here's where it gets fascinating. The Aboriginals in Australia call it the dreaming, that connection to something beyond the physical world. The Egyptians built entire pyramids pointing toward what they called the return journey of the soul. Hindu texts speak of moksha, the soul's liberation back to its original state. Different languages, different symbols, different rituals, but they're all describing the same magnetic pull you feel right now. Think about this. What are the odds that every civilization, separated by oceans and centuries, would independently develop the same core spiritual hunger? It's like finding the same song being hummed by isolated tribes across the globe. This isn't coincidence. This is evidence. Evidence that you carry ancient wisdom in your very DNA. That longing you feel, it's not a flaw or emptiness, it's a homing signal. Your soul remembers its origin story, and it's trying to guide you back home. But here's the twist that changes everything. While we all share the same destination, that place of truth, connection, and inner peace, your route there is completely unique. The Greeks had to climb mountains of logic and reason. The Sufis danced their way to ecstasy. The Buddhists sat in perfect stillness. Your path might involve painting, or parenting, or coding, or cooking. The universe doesn't care about your method. It only cares that you answer the call. That restless feeling in your heart isn't a problem to solve. It's an invitation to remember who you really are. And the fact that you're here, listening to this, searching for something deeper, that's not random. That's your soul saying, it's time. The map has been inside you all along. You just needed permission to trust it. Why spirituality becomes personal. What if I told you that your childhood trauma, your weird personality quirks, and even that thing about you that makes you feel different from everyone else, what if all of that isn't random? What if it's actually your soul's custom-designed navigation system, perfectly calibrated to lead you to the divine in a way that no one else could ever access? Right now, you're about to discover why trying to copy someone else's spiritual practice is like trying to wear their prescription glasses. It might look right from the outside, but it'll leave you dizzy, frustrated, and convinced something's wrong with you. Here's what the spiritual gurus don't want you to know. Your wounds are actually your superpowers in disguise. That kid who grew up in chaos. Their soul learned to find God in the eye of the storm, the one who was always too sensitive. They developed spiritual radar that can detect the sacred in a crowded room. The rebel who questioned everything. They're wired to find truth beyond the pretty lies everyone else accepts. Think about it. You've got this incredibly complex mix of genetics, childhood experiences, cultural programming, and personal battles that makes you absolutely unique on this planet. 7 billion people, and not one of them has your exact combination of scars and gifts. Why would the universe create such diversity and then expect everyone to connect to the divine the same way? It's like this. Imagine the divine as an infinite ocean. Some people are rivers. They flow quietly and steadily towards the sea through meditation and stillness. Others are waterfalls. They need the rush of music, dance, or intense experience to crash into enlightenment. Some are underground streams. They find God through service, flowing beneath the surface to nourish others. And some are morning dew. They discover the sacred in tiny, quiet moments that others might miss completely. But here's the mind-blowing part. Your specific path isn't just about you. The universe needs your unique frequency. That thing you do differently? That's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. Your soul came equipped with its own spiritual language because the divine has something to say through you that can only be said in your voice. The introvert who finds God in solitude isn't broken because they can't handle group worship. The extrovert who needs community to feel spiritual isn't shallow. The person who connects through nature isn't avoiding real spirituality. They're all speaking fluent divine, just in different dialects. Your temperament, your culture, even your deepest wounds, they're all part of your soul's GPS system. That anxiety you've carried, it might be making you hypersensitive to spiritual energy. That need for logic and proof, it could be driving you toward a more grounded, practical spirituality that others need to see. That creative chaos in your mind, it might be how you channel divine inspiration. The spiritual path isn't one size fits all because souls aren't mass-produced. They're handcrafted, each one designed for a specific mission that only they can fulfill. So stop trying to fit into someone else's spiritual box. Stop judging your path because it doesn't look like theirs. Your soul didn't choose this exact combination of traits by accident. It chose them because this is the only way the divine could reach the world through you. You're not doing spirituality wrong. You're doing it exactly the way it was always meant to be done, your way. The secret menu every religion hides. What if I told you that every major religion has a secret menu, hidden pathways that most followers never even know exist? And what if the reason you felt disconnected from traditional spirituality is because you've only been offered the basic package, when your soul was designed for the premium experience? You're about to discover something that will change how you see every spiritual tradition forever. Each one isn't just one path. It's actually 4, 5, sometimes dozens of completely different routes to the same destination, custom built for different types of souls. Let's start with Hinduism, the world's oldest spiritual operating system. Most people think it's all about meditation and yoga poses. But here's the secret. Ancient Hindu masters identified 4 completely different personality types and gave each one their own spiritual highway. Are you a lover? They created Bhakti Yoga, pure devotion where you fall so deeply in. Love with the divine that your heart becomes a temple. Are you a thinker who needs to understand everything? Jnana Yoga is your path, using your mind as a laser to cut through illusion and find truth. Are you someone who feels guilty just sitting still? Karma Yoga transforms your daily work into worship. And if you're the type who needs structure and discipline, Raja Yoga gives you the 8-step spiritual boot camp. 4 completely different approaches, same goal, your choice. But it gets crazier. The Sufis, those mystical dancers you see spinning, they discovered something revolutionary. Each student was guided by their personal dreams, their unique inner states, their private relationship with the beloved. No 2 Sufi masters taught the same way, because no 2 souls loved the same way. Your connection to God became as intimate and personal as your fingerprint. Even Christianity, which many think is all about following the same rules, has hidden diversity that will shock you. Teresa of Avila found God through intense mystical visions and spiritual ecstasy. Francis of Assisi discovered the divine by literally becoming one with nature and serving the poorest of the poor. Same Jesus, completely different spiritual languages. And Buddhism? Don't even get me started. You've got the quiet, methodical Theravada path where you slowly and steadily observe your mind until enlightenment creeps up on you. Then there's Zen, where masters literally shock you into awakening with impossible riddles and paradoxes. And Tibetan Buddhism creates entire detailed visualizations where you become the deity you're worshiping. 3 completely different approaches to the Buddha's teaching, all valid, all powerful, all leading to the same liberation. Here's what this means for you. That feeling you've had that spiritual stuff just doesn't work for me? That's not because you're spiritually broken. It's because you've been trying to force your unique soul into someone else's spiritual uniform. The ancient masters knew something that modern spirituality forgot. There are as many paths to God as there are people walking them. They didn't create cookie-cutter programs. They created personalized spiritual GPS systems. Your temperament isn't an obstacle to overcome. It's the key that unlocks your specific spiritual door. The thing that makes you different from everyone else, that's not your weakness. That's your spiritual superpower that's been waiting for the right tradition, the right practice, the right approach to activate it. So stop trying to meditate like a monk if you're wired like a warrior. Stop forcing yourself to love like a mystic if you're built like a scholar. The masters of every tradition already figured out your type thousands of years ago, and they left you a custom roadmap. You just need to find your spiritual language and start speaking it fluently. Your soul's native language is calling. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is having a spiritual breakthrough while washing dishes. Another person is experiencing divine connection while coding at 3 a.m. Someone else is finding God through a paintbrush, and another through the rhythm of their running shoes on pavement. What if the thing you do that makes you feel most alive, that thing you've never thought of as spiritual, is actually your soul speaking its native language? You're about to discover why your most authentic spiritual moments probably happened outside of any temple, church, or meditation hall. And why that's not accident, it's divine design. Here's what nobody tells you. Your soul already knows how to pray. It's been doing it every time you lost yourself in something that felt bigger than yourself. Every time you got goosebumps from a song, felt peace watching clouds move, or experienced that strange rightness when you were creating something. That was prayer in your soul's native language. Think about the people who build personal altars in their bedrooms, not because some book told them to, but because something inside them craved a sacred space that felt like home. They're not copying anyone. They're translating an inner knowing into physical form. Their soul is saying, "This is how I connect." Or the woman who gets her deepest spiritual insights while swimming in the ocean. The forest isn't just trees to some people, it's their cathedral, their temple, their direct hotline to the divine. They don't need stained glass windows when they have sunlight filtering through leaves. They don't need organ music when they have wind in the branches. And here's where it gets really interesting. Some souls awaken through suffering, the dark night that cracks them open until light pours in. Others find God through pure joy, dancing, laughing, celebrating until the boundaries between self and spirit dissolve completely. Same destination, opposite routes, both perfect. The artist who paints until they disappear into the canvas isn't just making art. They're channeling the divine creative force that moves through everything. The writer whose words flow like they're coming from somewhere else. They're not imagining it. They're plugged into the same source that inspired every sacred text ever written. Even the modern stuff that spiritual purists judge, the person finding peace through breathwork while listening to electronic music, the runner who hits a flow state and feels connected to everything, the programmer who experiences transcendence debugging code. They're all accessing the same infinite source, just through different entry points. Your soul chose its native language before you were born. It's the thing that makes you feel most like yourself and most connected to something greater at the same time. It might be movement or stillness, sound or silence, solitude or community, tradition or complete innovation. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to learn a foreign spiritual language when their soul is already fluent in something beautiful and unique. You don't need to become someone else to find God. You need to become more of who you already are. That thing you do that feels natural, that flows without effort, that makes time disappear, that's not a hobby or distraction from your spiritual path. That is your spiritual path. Your soul has been trying to show you its native language your entire life. Stop looking for your spiritual practice in someone else's playbook. Start paying attention to what already makes you feel connected, alive, and awake. Your soul doesn't need translation, it needs recognition. The divine has been speaking to you in your native language all along. You just needed permission to call it prayer. The 4 spiritual traps that keep you from your power. What if I told you that the reason you feel like you're failing at spirituality isn't because you lack faith, discipline, or divine connection? What if it's because you've fallen into one of 4 invisible traps that the spiritual world doesn't want you to know about? Traps designed to keep you buying courses, seeking gurus, and doubting your own direct line to the divine? Right now, you're about to learn how to spot these traps and why escaping them is the difference between being a spiritual tourist and becoming a spiritual native in your own life. Trap number 1, the comparison thief. You see someone posting about their 5 a.m. meditation practice, and suddenly your evening prayer ritual feels amateur. You watch someone cry during breathwork and wonder why you just felt calm instead of emotional. Here's the brutal truth. Spiritual comparison is like comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That person posting about their perfect morning practice. They probably spent 3 years struggling to wake up before 9 a.m. Their breakthrough moment you're envying? It might have taken them 5 years of boring, unglamorous daily practice to reach. Your spiritual journey isn't supposed to look like theirs because you're not living their life, carrying their wounds, or serving their purpose. Trap number 2, mistaking the costume for the character. This is where people get obsessed with the spiritual form, the crystals, the Sanskrit words, the perfect yoga poses, and completely miss the essence. They're collecting spiritual trophies instead of cultivating spiritual connection. It's like thinking that buying expensive paint makes you an artist. The paint is just a tool. The art happens in the connection between your soul and the canvas. Trap number 3, spiritual bypassing, the exotic addiction. This one's sneaky. You keep chasing the next big spiritual experience, ayahuasca retreats, advanced tantric workshops, esoteric breathing techniques. Meanwhile, you can't sit with your own thoughts for 5 minutes or have an honest conversation with your mother. You're trying to reach enlightenment by skipping over your humanity. But here's the thing. The divine wants to meet you exactly where you are, not where you think you should be. And trap number 4, the deadliest one, doubt that disguises itself as humility. Everyone else gets these powerful spiritual experiences, but I just feel normal. Maybe I'm not spiritual enough. What if I'm doing it wrong? This doubt makes you distrust the very experiences that are actually working for you? What if that normal feeling is actually deep peace? What if your quiet, steady connection is more powerful than someone else's dramatic awakening? What if the divine speaks to you in whispers because you're advanced enough to hear subtle guidance? Here's what changes everything. Your lived experience is the only spiritual authority that matters. Not what you read in books. Not what your teacher says you should feel. Not what looks good on social media. What actually happens when you connect with something greater than yourself, that's your truth. The spiritual path isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming so authentically yourself that the divine has no choice but to flow through you. Your way, your timing, your language. Stop trying to fit into someone else's spiritual shoes. Start trusting the ground beneath your own feet. That's where your power lives. That's where your truth waits. And that's where the divine has been meeting you all along. How to cultivate your unique journey. What I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've been told about spirituality and show you why you've been sabotaging your own awakening without even knowing it. There's a 5-step activation sequence that every enlightened being in history discovered. But the spiritual industry buried it because awakened people don't buy courses. They don't need gurus. They don't stay dependent on systems designed to keep them seeking forever. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn the exact process that transforms spiritual tourists into spiritual natives. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You'll realize you've had the keys to your own awakening this entire time. You just didn't know which doors they opened. Step 1 is what I call soul archaeology. Digging up the buried treasure of your authentic spiritual nature. Most people skip this step and wonder why nothing works. But here's what the masters knew. Your soul has been leaving you clues your entire life about how it wants to connect with the divine. Think back to when you were a kid before anyone told you how spirituality was supposed to look. Where did you feel that sense of wonder, that bigger-than-yourself feeling? Was it staring at stars? Building something with your hands? Getting lost in music? Dancing until you forgot yourself? Reading stories that transported you to other worlds? Those weren't just childhood interests. Those were your soul's early attempts to show you its native language. The 8-year-old you who felt connected to something greater while climbing trees wasn't just playing. They were having a spiritual experience in the cathedral of nature. Ask yourself right now, what moves me most? Not what should move me, but what actually does. Is it the rhythm of music that makes your body want to move? The silence of early morning that makes your mind feel clear? The act of serving others that makes your heart feel full? The process of learning something new that makes your soul feel expanded? Write that down. That's not random. That's your spiritual DNA expressing itself. Step 2 is sacred experimentation. And this is where most people get it backwards. They commit to a practice before they know if it fits. But your soul is like your body. It needs to test drive different spiritual vehicles before choosing the one that takes you farthest. Spend the next month becoming a spiritual scientist. If you've always been drawn to movement, try ecstatic dance, walking meditation, or even mindful running. If you're a words person, experiment with journaling as prayer, reading spiritual poetry, or chanting. If you're naturally service-oriented, Volunteer somewhere that moves you and pay attention to how it feels when you're helping others. But here's the key. Approach each experiment with curiosity, not judgment. You're not trying to prove anything or get anywhere specific. You're just gathering data about what makes your soul feel most alive and connected. Some practices will feel like putting on clothes that don't fit, awkward, forced, unnatural. Others will feel like coming home after a long trip. Trust that feeling. Your soul recognizes its own medicine. Step 3 is where the magic happens. Micro-integration. This is the difference between spiritual tourists and spiritual residents. You don't need hour-long meditation sessions or weekend retreats to maintain your connection. You need 5 minutes of the right practice done consistently. Take whatever felt most natural from your experiments and make it ridiculously small. If journaling as prayer resonated, commit to writing 3 sentences each morning about what you're grateful for. If movement is your language, dance to 1 song every day. If silence feeds you, sit quietly for just 5 minutes before your morning coffee. The key is consistency over intensity. Your soul doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to show up. 5 minutes every day creates a stronger spiritual foundation than 2 hours once a week. Step 4 is authentic assessment. How to know if you're actually growing or just fooling yourself. Forget about mystical experiences and spiritual fireworks. The real signs of authentic spiritual growth are surprisingly practical. Are you becoming more compassionate with yourself and others? Are you present more often, even in ordinary moments? Do you feel more at peace with uncertainty? Are you less reactive to other people's drama? Do you feel connected to something larger than your personal problems? These aren't glamorous markers, but they're real ones. Authentic spirituality makes you more human, not less. More grounded, not more spaced out. More loving, not more judgmental. Step 5 is guided authenticity. Working with teachers and traditions without losing yourself in them. Here's the thing about spiritual guidance. Take what serves you and leave what doesn't, even if it comes from someone enlightened. A true teacher wants to awaken your inner knowing, not replace it with their system. Use traditions like a buffet. Sample what calls to you. Nourish yourself with what resonates. And don't feel obligated to eat everything just because it's on the table. Now, let me give you 3 questions that will unlock everything we've been talking about. Get a journal or just the Notes app on your phone and answer these honestly. Where do I feel closest to the sacred? Not where you think you should, but where you actually do. Is it in your garden, in your kitchen while cooking, in your car listening to music, in quiet moments before dawn? Do I connect better alone or in community? Some souls are naturally solitary spiritual practitioners. Others come alive in group energy. Neither is better. They're just different spiritual languages. Do I find the divine more in silence or in action? Some people meet God in stillness. Others discover the divine while in motion, creating, serving, building, dancing. Your answers to these questions aren't just preferences. They're instructions from your soul about how it wants to connect with the infinite. You don't need to figure out spirituality. You need to remember what your soul already knows. The path isn't out there waiting to be found. It's inside you waiting to be walked. These 5 steps aren't about becoming spiritual. They're about becoming authentically yourself. And when you're authentically yourself, the divine has no choice but to flow through you. Your unique spiritual journey isn't a consolation prize for not fitting into someone else's path. It's the exact frequency the universe has been waiting for you to broadcast. Start today. Your soul has been patient, but it's ready to come alive. Your spiritual fingerprint, the final revelation. You know that feeling when you've been wearing shoes that are too tight all day and you finally get home and take them off? That moment of relief of, oh my God, why was I torturing myself? That's what just happened to your soul. You've been cramming yourself into spiritual shoes that were never your size. And you finally just realized you can walk barefoot. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. The moment you stop trying to fit into someone else's spiritual path is the exact moment you become a threat to every guru, every course creator, every system that makes money from keeping you dependent and searching. Think about this for a second. You've got these tiny ridges on your fingertips that have never existed before in human history and will never exist again. No two people, not even identical twins, share the same fingerprint. 7 billion people on this planet, and your fingerprint is absolutely unique. Your spiritual journey works exactly the same way. It's got the same fundamental patterns as everyone else's: the search for meaning, the hunger for connection, the need to feel part of something greater. But the specific way those patterns express through you, that's never happened before and will never happen again. This isn't some feel-good, everyone is special nonsense. This is cosmic design. The universe doesn't create redundancy. It doesn't make backup copies. It made you because it needed exactly what you bring to the table, expressed exactly the way you express it. Every person who's ever found genuine spiritual connection discovered the same shocking truth. They had to stop trying to be someone else. The Buddha didn't become the Buddha by copying other enlightened masters. He sat under that tree and figured out his own way to wake up. Jesus didn't follow someone else's playbook. He rewrote the entire spiritual game by being authentically himself. Your spiritual fingerprint isn't just about you. It's about what the world needs that only you can provide. That weird combination of your gifts, your wounds, your questions, your insights, that's not random. That's assignment. The reason nothing has worked until now isn't because you're spiritually challenged. It's because you've been trying to access the infinite through someone else's entry code. But you've got your own code. You've always had it. So here's what changes everything. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to do something radical. Instead of trying to meditate like someone else, instead of forcing yourself into another spiritual box, ask yourself one simple question. What feels like prayer to me? Not what should feel like prayer. What actually does? Maybe it's that moment when you're completely absorbed in cooking and time disappears. Maybe it's when you're walking your dog and suddenly feel connected to everything around you. Maybe it's when you're helping someone and feel like love is moving through you. Maybe it's when you're creating something and feel like you're channeling something greater than yourself. That feeling, that's not accidental. That's not less than. That's your soul speaking its native language. That's your direct line to the divine. And it's been active your entire life. Your answer might surprise you because it probably won't look spiritual to anyone else. And that's perfect, because the moment your spirituality becomes unrecognizable to the spiritual marketplace, you know you found the real thing. You're not broken if meditation doesn't work for you. You're not spiritually inferior if you don't cry during yoga class. You're not less evolved if your connection to the divine happens while you're fixing cars or teaching kids or writing code. You're just operating on your own spiritual frequency, and that frequency is exactly what the universe ordered. Your spiritual fingerprint is calling. Tonight, when you ask yourself what feels like prayer, listen to the answer. Trust it. Honor it. Because the world is waiting for exactly what you have to offer, expressed exactly the way only you can express it. You're not just finding your path, you're creating it. And that makes you not just spiritual, that makes you revolutionary. Hit subscribe if you're ready to stop being a spiritual tourist and become a spiritual native. Because in coming up video, we're coming up with a crazier topic. And I promise you, what you discover there will change literally everything.